Hello everyone, this is Hina Sadaf. As you know, we are discussing fishing industry of Pakistan and it's the third lesson of this chapter. Today in this lesson, we'll be covering the methods of fish handling, fish processing and fish preservation. Once we are done with it, we'll be covering sustainable fishing, that is the solution to overfishing and rest of the problems being faced by the fishing communities of Pakistan. So let's begin. So, what is fish processing? The term fish processing refers to all the processes associated with fish and fish products. It means whether the fish is used as a raw, or it is being cut into pieces and fish fillets and finger fish are made, or other fish products such as fish liver oil or fish meal is being made. All these products are made after some processes. So all the processes which are associated with fish and fish products between the time fish is caught in the open waters, or from the time when it is harvested from a fish farm, and the time the final product is delivered to the customer, all the processes are basically known as fish processing processes. As you can see in this picture above, the staff of a fish processing industry is removing fish waste and bones and rest of the unrequired unnecessary waste material from the fish fillets, and after this is removed, this is going to be this is going to be sent as raw material to fish meal industries, where it would be turned into another product. Next is fish handling. It refers to transferring fish from fishing gear. Now, fishing gear is basically whatever is being used to catch fish. It could be a fish trawl, it could be a net, or it could be a fishing line. These are known as fishing gear. Now, fish is being removed from these and then it is held at the boat or at the launch or at the vessel, where it is stored until the fishermen come back on the harbor and they unload it. Now obviously they are going to store it, so it could be a day or a week before they come back to the harbor or to the coast, so they want the fish to remain fresh. Now if the fishing boat or fishing vessel is a big enough and is a mechanized one, there must be a refrigeration unit at it. There must be a refrigerator available, which keeps the temperature lower and keeps the fish fresh until they come back at the harbor. Otherwise, if it's a small boat, if it's not a very modern one, so the fishermen would be using ice. Now ice is used and the fish is kept in containers, and the containers are covered with ice so that they can keep their fish fresh. They can keep their fish at low temperatures before they reach at the coast, before they come at the harbor and unload the fish. Now there could be one of two things. Now fishermen can do what? They can sort the fish on the boat or on the vessel. Sorting is basically grading the fish according to its breed and removing the bycatch. Bycatch is basically what fish they did not want to catch, but somehow they ended up catching it because the net does not discriminate amongst fish. Or the other thing could be they just store the fish and they wait until they come back to harbor, and then sorting is done there. Sorting and grading could be done at the harbor as well. So fish is stored, it's basically chilled by the time they until the time they come back to the harbor, and when they reach the harbor, when they anchor there, the fish is unloaded, and we can also call it landing the fish on the harbor, and this is further sold, and if they want to consume it or if it's sent to an industry, all the processes would then take place after the handling of the fish. Now, this is something very basic that you all must be familiar with. There are two basic methods of, or we can categorize the fish processing and preserving methods into two categories. The first one is the traditional one, and the second one is the modern one. Traditional, as the name suggests, uses primitive techniques or the basic techniques which the people of coastal communities have been using for hundreds of years. It means they do not require machinery, they do not rely on chemicals, and obviously they opt for natural techniques and they use sunlight and rest of the stuff. But if we talk about the modern methods or modern techniques, then there would be use of machinery, there would be refrigeration, canning, and there would be use of preservatives and chemicals because it's the modern one and they rely on modern technology and the scientific advancement or whatever advancement has have taken place in this field of preserving and in the field of processing fish. So in the next slide we'll look at these categories in detail. Now these are what known as fish preserving methods, the traditional fish preserving methods. But be it the traditional methods or be it the modern methods of fish preservation, there is some sort of processing involved before the process of preservation starts. So we'll just discuss what the basic processing is involved in the fishing industry. So the first thing is removal of scales from the whole fish. Scales that are present on the bodies of fish, these are being removed first, and then fish is washed and its head is cut, and obviously the tail is removed, and after the scales are scraped down and the head is removed, whatever blood and other unnecessary materials are left inside the fish, these are also being removed, the parts which are not consumed by human beings. After this is done, the fish is then preserved as it is, or it can be turned into fish fillets. So for making fish fillets, the process which is involved, it is basically known as filleting the fish, in which strips of flesh are cut parallel to backbone of the fish. It's the first thing that we saw in the first slide of this presentation. The first method of fish preservation which is mentioned here is known as salting. Now salting is of two types. First one is dry salting and the second one is wet salting. It means the salt, we use salt as a substance to preserve fish, but in one of the method which is wet salting, fish after it's processed, its waste is being removed, its bones, heads and scales are being removed, then fish is soaked in brine. Brine is highly concentrated salt solution. It's simply salt and water, but the concentration of salt is very high in it, and fish is left in it. The fish fillets or whatever pieces are being cut, these are left in this solution until fish flesh fully soaks this brine and it starts floating over the surface. So there is going to be enough salt in it which would prevent it from becoming rotten, and this is the first traditional way of preserving fish. The other one is dry salting. Now again, the first thing is going to be removal of whatever waste material is there, removal of fish head and fish tail, these are going to be removed. Then they are going to apply salt on the fish, but in a way that whatever juices or slime or salty water is then produced from fish flesh, it's allowed to flow away. This is known as dry salting, and it is going to make the fish dry. But when all the liquids, all the slimes or all the brine would be uh, washed away, or it would flow away from the fish. So this way it could be stored for a longer period of time. If we talk about small fish which is very small in size, it could be stored without removing fish head and tail. Now whatever the use of fish the fishermen have, it depends on that. The next method is known as drying. Drying is when fish is dried under the sunlight. Now sun must be shining very brightly for this, and it is usually helpful for fish which is smaller in size. So the small thin fish can be dried straight away in the sun, or they cut it into two halves and then they hang it on a line under the sunlight, so that whatever moisture is there in the fish flesh, it would evaporate and the fish would be crisp and it can be stored for a longer period of time. So these were the primitive or traditional ways of preserving fish. The next slide is about the modern methods of fish preservation. The first method of fish preservation, which comes under the category of modern methods or techniques of fish preservation, is fish canning. In this process, their fish is going to be first processed, obviously. Waste, head, and scales or tails or bones would be removed from it. Then, fish is sent through a heat treatment. Now, heat treatment is basically to sterilize fish and to make sure that the heat kills the microorganisms and spores, and fish could be stored for prolonged prolonged time. And once this is done, fish is then sealed into containers which are made up of tin plates, or which are made of aluminum cans or glass. So first is fish processing, then there is a sterilization or heat treatment, and then fish is being packed or sealed into cans. This is known as canning. Next is freezing. Now it is different than chilling. Chilling is what we discussed under fish handling, when fish is stored in cold storages or where it is chilled under ice. But this is basically to keep fish frozen over a longer period of time, to increase its sort of shelf life, so that it could be easily transported and then sold and consumed by the consumers. So in this again, first step is going to be fish processing, removal of waste, head, and rest of the body parts of fish which we have already discussed. And then fish is going to be packed into plastic packaging or whatever packaging they use, and it is then frozen. It is kept frozen in the freezers, and this is how it is transported. This is how you would find it in the supermarkets, and this is how the consumers store it in their homes uh, until they want to cook it and consume it. Last, you can see I have added linkage industries here. Now, why have I added linkage industries here? Because fish in one or the other form, or fish waste in one or the other form, is being preserved or stored after a product is being made at these linkage industries. So first thing I have mentioned here is oil extraction. Fish oil is, as we have already discussed in previous classes, it is a good source of vitamin A and D. It is removed from fish waste, or it is also removed from fish liver. uh, from fish waste, whatever oily or whatever fatty substances are, these are obtained and these are then converted into fish oil, and this fish oil is then stored into capsule forms and it's sold in the pharmaceutical sector, or in the shops which sell medicines and all. And whatever waste is then left after the removal of this oily or fatty substances from fish waste, whatever waste is there, be it parts of head of the fish or scales or bones or tails or whatever material is basically known as waste material, has been thrown out or has been sent from the fish processing industries as a waste material, is then going to be used as a raw material for fish meal industries. Now, what do fish meal industries do? They dry all of this waste. Now, this waste is being dried first, then they grind it. Once it's in powder form, it's then stored into cake forms or into small ball forms, into granular forms. Now, this product is known as fish meal. Fish meal has its own uses. It's good as it's very good as a fertilizer. People add it in the soil to increase fertility of the soil, to ensure better growth of their plants and crops. It is a good source of protein or nutrition for livestock, so it can be used as livestock feed, it could be used as poultry feed. So these were the ways by which fishes or fish is or fish products are being stored or preserved. I hope this is clear to everyone. This next slide is about problems faced by the fishermen or fishing industry of Pakistan. The first and the major problem which I've mentioned here is water pollution. Now, pollution could be caused by domestic waste that is released into water bodies, fresh water bodies, it means rivers and in lakes, or domestic waste which is being released uh, in the oceans and the seas. Now the thing is, this waste is being released or being thrown in the water bodies without being treated. It means there is no treatment of this sewage water and it is released into water bodies, thus causing pollution. The other kind of water pollution could be the industrial waste, all the waste that is thrown out of the industries, that comes out or out of the industries. It has chemicals, it has dyes, it has all the other waste materials and oils in it. It's then released in the water bodies and contaminates the water. The third kind of water pollution, which is basically hurting the fishing industry of Pakistan, is the agricultural waste. When chemicals and fertilizers and pesticides, these are washed by the water and these enter in the water bodies, be it fresh water bodies, be it the sea water, it's going to cause problem, it's going to create pollution. And this pollution harms fish population in different ways. First is going to be the growth of algae in the water bodies, when there is going to be a lot of nitrogen and phosphorus from fertilizers and waste. This is going to promote algae growth and the growth of water plants, and this growth, which is going to be extensive, it's going to reduce oxygen levels in the waters. And when fish is going to consume this algae and rest of the plants, the toxins are going to be accumulated within the fish. And whatever bigger fish is going to consume that smaller fish, the toxins then would be stored in the body of the predator or the consumer fish. So this is going to be a whole chain which would affect the fishing population, and increasing toxins would simply mean that there would be a decreasing fish population. Same is the case with fish that is being affected by the pollution caused by pesticides or by chemical waste or by heavy metal waste. Now it reduces fish's ability to smell, and obviously when its ability to smell or locate food is going to reduce, it would no longer be able to find food, and it would no longer be able to protect itself from the predator fish or the other animals. This is going to reduce the fish population in the water bodies, and as the fish population would reduce, so would the output of fishing industry, so would the catch reduce, and it's going to have a negative impact on the fishing industry of Pakistan. The next problem mentioned here is overfishing. Now, as the name suggests, we are catching more fish than we should. And what's the reason behind it? That the number of fishing vessels in Pakistan's coastal waters have been increasing steadily, but at the same time we are not catching enough fish. And who is responsible for this is basically overfishing done by the poor fish farmers who use band nets. Now the band nets are smaller in size, and they catch the smaller fish, which then disturbs the whole food chain in the water, and which leads to less fish population available for fishermen, and which reduces the fish catch eventually. So when we talk about the small size net, we basically talk about the mesh size. Now, previously, when traditional ways of catching fish were used, these were sustainable. The mesh size was wide enough so that the fish fry, the small fry, could easily uh, escape from it. The size was ideal size, that is 2.5 to 6 inches, so that smaller fish can easily move out of it, and the adult fish is being caught. But over the time, environmentally harmful nets have been introduced in an effort to increase fish catch. So when we started catching more fish, we left it with less chances of regeneration. The third problem that is mentioned here is threat to mangroves. So, in the chapter Forests of Pakistan, we have already discussed that how crucial mangroves are for the fishing communities and for the aquatic animals. And if the mangroves are decreasing in number due to water pollution or due to logging or due to any other reason, it's eventually going to affect the fish population. It would reduce breeding ground for fish. It would reduce finding. It would reduce chances of finding shelter for the fish, and obviously, fish would not be as much as it is when there are a lot of mangroves. So, to have enough fish in the water, we have to save mangroves in the coastal regions. Next is lack of financial resources. Now, this is a complicated problem. What happens here is that when there is a poverty, people, the fishermen, do not have enough financial resources. They end up taking loans from Viparis, and in the end, there comes a time when they are not catching enough fish, and they are not able to pay back the loan. They are left with no other choices but to opt for unsustainable ways of catching fish. So they opt for catching smaller fish. The other way this unavailability of financial resources is affecting the fisheries is Pakistan is poorly developed harbors and a lack of facilities at the harbors. If we talk about the harbors in Balochistan, the fishing communities are not as privileged as mm, they are at the Sindh coast, because they are being provided with enough facilities. So just because Pakistan has been facing lack of enough financial resources to invest into these sectors, so it is affecting the fishing industry of Pakistan. So this is considered as one of the problems here. Next is ghost fishing. Now, this ghost fishing is basically when fishing gear is lost and is abandoned in the ocean. Now, the fishing gear is obviously not under the control of human beings anymore, but it still has the ability, the nets still have the ability to catch fish. Now, these are known as ghost gears. These ghost gears, obviously, they would remain in the sea, in the oceans, at the bottom of these water bodies, and the fish would be stuck in it. Now, the fish that is stuck in these nets, in these ghost gears, is basically of no benefit to anyone. The fishermen are not catching it, and the other fish is unable to eat it. So it basically gets stuck in there and it dies there. And if we talk about the Pakistani waters, these ghost nets are killing lobsters, crabs, tortoise, and it means it's causing a lot of damage to the fish that is present in the waters of Pakistan, and it's obviously going in vain. There is no use of this fish being trapped in these ghost nets. Last problem, which I've mentioned here, is unreported or unregulated fishing. So, what happens here is that fish is being caught, obviously, in the Pakistani waters, and it's sold, but it's not reported, it's unregulated, it's unreported. So it's basically depriving Pakistan of valuable foreign exchange. It means it's being sold, but it's not added into any account. So what happens here that the foreign fishing boats and trawlers, they are venturing into exclusive economic zone of the country. It means the water which are basically under the control of Pakistan, and what they do there, they catch fish, and not only they catch fish in the waters here, the local fishermen also catch fish and they sell their fish to these trawlers and these launches in the open waters, and whatever they have earned, it's not reported. They don't pay any tax on it. So this is how they are basically depriving Pakistan from enough foreign exchange. That's how they are being able to get away with not paying taxes, and that's how uh, illegal, unreported fishing is done. And it's one of the major problems which is being faced by the fishing industry of Pakistan, as they are using the aquatic resources, marine resources of Pakistan, yet we are not earning much out of it. We are being deprived of our uh, right in it. Now, what can be done to have sustainable fishing or to practice fishing sustainably? Now, the first thing here is ban on foreign trawlers in the area under Pakistan's control. Now, Pakistan has its economic zone that extends from the coast in the Arabian Sea up to 350 nautical miles. Now, this is the exclusive economic zone of Pakistan. And what happens is that there are foreign launches or foreign trawlers which come in this economic zone of Pakistan, and their fishing boats or their trawlers catch fish from this area. Now, this is illegal and they are catching our resources. And there is another problem: our local fishermen who have been catching fish in the areas further away from coast, they sell their catch. By catch I mean the fish they have caught. They sell their catch to these foreign trawlers, to these foreign launches, and this way, whatever they earn, whatever catch they had, the government or the authorities would never come to know about this. So, together, the foreign trawlers and foreign fishing boats and our local fishermen who have got license for fishing but they are selling their fish to the foreign trawlers, they are leading to illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, which is not at all in favor of sustainable fisheries. So, this has to be stopped. There has to be an increased monitoring and assessing also of the local fishermen who are going in the sea. If they are coming without any catch, obviously they have sold most of it, and there's need of data collection, of regular monitoring, control in our waters, and surveillance, which is going to help trace these problems and curb these issues. Next is implementation of laws. In the previous slide, I explained about the mesh size that is decided by the authorities, but it's not implemented yet because our laws are not properly. Next is afforestation of mangroves. We are decreasing the size of mangroves because the local communities, they cut these mangroves, they use these for firewood, for grazing and for other purposes. Other than that, the increasing pollution is causing mangroves to decrease, so there is a need of afforestation. If we increase mangroves, if we plant more mangroves, it would lead to more fish breeding grounds, and ultimately it's going to increase the fish population. So this is another way of sustainable fishing. It would help to sustainable fishing. Now, next point is monitoring of intertidal zone. Now, intertidal zone is the area where the ocean meets the land, between it's the area between high and low tide. It's the area which is consisting of mud flats. Now, whenever we have high tides, this area would be covered with water and it would be exposed during low tide season. Now, this area can be of extreme importance for fishing, for the growth of shrimps and crabs. Now, what could be done? These areas could be utilized for farming of or aquaculture of shrimps and aquaculture of crabs. Now, this area is extremely important also for planktons, for zytophones, and this is if this is going to be monitored properly, if this is prevented from extremely high tides with the help of mangroves, this can be of great importance for aquaculture and also for the fishing industry of Pakistan. Next is to use waterlogged areas for fish farming. So where the areas in Sindh and Punjab where waterlogging is a serious problem. The subsurface water, the groundwater, has increased to an alarming level. In these areas, cultivation or agriculture is not possible. So instead of leaving this land barren, we can make use of this area for making fish farm, because there is plentiful water and this land is unsuitable for agriculture. So these areas could be used for fish farms, and these are all the ways for sustainable fishing. So now that we are done with ways of sustainable fishing, let's see why sustainable fishing is important. The first thing is, if there's continuous supply of fish, if we have a balance of fish species in the sea, it would continue to provide us with food. And this food which we get from sea, this food is low in cholesterol and it's rich in vitamin D and other nutrients, so we can have a good supply for healthy food for our population. And next is, if there is enough fish in our sea or in our water bodies, we would be able to have enough catch or continuous supply of it, which can increase our foreign exchange. If we are catching good quality fish and it's enough more than the need of local population, it would be exported to other countries, which is good for economy of Pakistan. And next is training and education of fishermen. So if the fishermen are trained and they are educated with the modern technological skills, and they are able to use modern machinery, they are familiar with satellite navigations and all, this could be a great help for better fishing practices, and this is going to be helpful for the future of our fishing industry. And next is development of linkage industries. So if our fishing industry is thriving, if it's running sustainably, then the industries which rely on fishing industry, such as boat making industry, the net making industry, and fish processing industry, or salting and canning industries, these would also be thriving and people would be getting jobs in these industries. And if the areas which are having fishing as their major economic activity, if they continue to practice fishing, if there is enough fish for them, then there are chances that these areas might get developed. They would have better infrastructure facilities, they would have better roads and electricity supply, because if they are catching good amount of fish, then chances are they would be transporting it to other areas, and there are chances of setting up food fish processing industries and other linkage industries in these areas. So these are the reasons which make our need of having sustainable fishing more strong. And we can say, if we continue to fish on sustainable basis or on sustainable principles, then we can continue to have advantages from it.